So what happens when a company's big ideas start to get held back by its own technology? Well, that's what we're breaking down today. The super high-stakes journey of moving from a clunky, old-school system into the flexible, modern cloud. Let's dive in.
Okay, so let's meet our main character for this explainer, a company we'll call Innovate Corp. And like a lot of businesses out there, they hit a wall. Their ambition was aiming for the stars, but their tech was basically an anchor holding them down. This quote, it just perfectly nails that feeling, you know? That frustration that really kicks off a journey to the cloud. They knew they had to make a change, and they had to do it fast.
So, what was this big change they were really chasing? This slide lays it all out, right? On one side, you've got the old fortress, the monolith. Yeah, it's secure, but it's also super rigid, crazy expensive to keep running, and just painfully slow to update. And on the other side, the new frontier of the cloud. We're talking flexible, cost-efficient, and you can scale it up or down in an instant. The choice seems like a no-brainer, but actually getting from point A to point B, that's the real challenge.
To really get this journey, we first have to understand the villain of our story. So let's talk about the monolith and why it becomes this technical trap for companies that are trying to grow. So what in the world is a monolith? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a giant tangled up ball of yarn. Every single feature, every bit of code, every service, it's all woven together. So if you try to change one tiny little string, you risk pulling on and totally messing up the entire ball. For Innovate Corp, this meant that even the smallest updates were slow, they were risky, and just incredibly difficult. There was no way they could innovate at the speed they needed to.
Now, faced with this massive challenge, Innovate Corp didn't just start, throwing things at the cloud randomly. Nope. They knew that the most critical part of a successful move happens before you touch a single server. It is all about the plan.
And that plan had two absolutely crucial first steps. First up, assess the portfolio. They had to take a complete inventory of every single thing they had. It's kind of like mapping out an entire city before you try to rebuild it, right? And second, build the landing zone. This is all about preparing a secure, well-structured new home for their applications in the cloud, long before anything actually shows up.
You know, what's so smart about this is the results of that assessment. They didn't just treat every application the same way. Not at all. They realized, hey, 60% of our apps, we can just move those over quickly. That's a strategy called rehosting. Then, another 30% needed a few tweaks to really take advantage of the cloud. We'll call that replatforming. And only the most critical, core 10% would get the full ground-up rebuild, which is known as refactoring.
And remember that second step, the landing zone? Think of it like setting up base camp at Mount Everest. It's this safe, pre-configured, and totally secure spot in the cloud where all your networking, your security rules, your access controls are already set up. You don't start climbing the mountain until base camp is rock solid, and you for sure don't start migrating until that landing zone is ready to go.
So with the plan locked in, it was time for the main event. Innovate Corp didn't try to do this in one giant push. Instead, they approached the actual migration as a series of deliberate, totally manageable ways.
This timeline really shows the genius of their whole approach. They broke down an 18-month journey into 3 separate waves, and each one focused on a different strategy. This let them build momentum, learn as they went, and tackle the complexity in stages instead of all at once. Let's take a look at that first wave.
Wave 1 was all about one thing: speed. Rehosting, or as people call it, lift and shift, it's exactly what it sounds like. You're just picking up your application, as is, and dropping it into the cloud. The analogy here is perfect. You're not renovating the house, you're just moving the entire thing to a much, much better neighborhood that has way better utilities.
The trade-off here is pretty simple. The pro? Speed. It is absolutely the fastest way to get out of your old data center. The con? Well, you're not actually fixing any of the application's underlying issues. You've successfully moved that tangled ball of yarn, but guess what? It's still tangled.
All right, next up, Wave 2, replatform. This is where things start to get a little smarter. You're still moving the house, but this time, while it's being moved, you decide, you know what? Let's upgrade that old leaky plumbing to a modern system. In the cloud world, this means swapping out old things you had to manage yourself, like databases, for powerful managed services. This makes the app way more efficient without having to do a complete rewrite.
And the trade-off for replatforming? It's this beautiful balance. The pro is that you start getting real cloud benefits, like better performance and lower operational costs. The con, of course, is that it takes more planning and more effort than a simple lift and shift. Innovate Corp targeted the apps where this extra work would give them the biggest bang for their buck. And finally, we get to wave 3, the most intensive one of all, refactoring. This was for that special 10% of mission-critical applications. This isn't just moving the house anymore. This is a complete gut renovation. We're talking knocking down walls, redesigning the entire layout, and rebuilding it from the studs up to be a modern, efficient, cloud-native masterpiece.
This final wave really presents the ultimate trade-off. The pro is just pure power. You unlock the absolute maximum performance, agility, and scale that the cloud can offer. But the con is the sheer complexity. It is a major investment of time, money, and talent. And that's exactly why they only saved it for the applications that were at the very heart of their business.
So, after 18 months of really careful planning and execution, the journey was done. So, what did life actually look like for Innovate Corp on the other side? I mean, what was the big payoff? Let's start with the bottom line, shall we? A 40% reduction in annual infrastructure costs. By moving to the cloud and finally shutting down all that old hardware, they turned a huge capital expense into a much more manageable and efficient operational cost. Now that is a number that gets everyone's attention.
But you know what? The benefits went way beyond just saving money. They unlocked a whole new set of what you could basically call superpowers. They could deploy new features way faster, they could scale their services across the globe at a moment's notice, and they could tap into the cloud's advanced security features. They weren't trapped by their technology anymore. They were empowered by it.
So, what can we all learn from Innovate Corp's success story? Let's try and boil their journey down into a clear blueprint that, maybe you could even apply.
Okay, here are the key takeaways. First, plan before you move. The implication there is that your upfront assessment and your landing zone design, that's the foundation for everything that comes after. Second, match the strategy to the app. Don't just use a one-size-fits-all approach. Use rehost, replatform, and refactor where they actually make the most sense. And finally, migrate in waves. This is what takes a monumental task and makes it manageable, and it builds that crucial momentum you need to see it through.
And that really brings us to our final thought. Innovate Corp's story proves that technology isn't just some line item on a budget. It's the engine that drives a business forward. So the question I want to leave you with is this. Is your engine a modern, powerful machine that's pushing you forward, or is it an old, rusty anchor holding you back?